So I'll get started. Some of you know that I've been covering the territory of this wonderful book called Listening to the Heart, a book by Tanisra and Kitasaro. And I'll continue to work my way through the book, just using it as a jumping off place for these Wednesday night talks. Of course, you don't have to have the book. I'll give you all the information you need, even without reading the book. It will be fine. But I'd like to start with I would like to start with a quote. I'm sorry, I'm paying attention to the chat. It sounds like there might be another technical problem. If anybody's having trouble hearing the audio, just type it in the chat and we'll see what we can do. All right. So this is the beginning of chapter 2. We've worked our way mostly through chapter 1. At the beginning of chapter 2, this is called A Stab to the Heart, chapter written by Tanisra, and it starts with a quote from Ajahn Chah, their teacher. Dhamma is in your heart, not in the forest. Don't believe others, just listen to your heart. You don't have to go and look anywhere else. Wisdom is in you, just like the sweet ripe mango is already in a young green one. With even a little intuitive wisdom, you will be able to see clearly the ways of the world. You will come to understand that everything in the world is your teacher. Really beautiful words there, just inspiring to me. And really point us back to how this path is ours to walk. And these teachings that we have, these beautiful teachings are just supports on our journey. And I really felt like inspired to maybe bridge these two chapters for us tonight, at least ideas in these two chapters, chapter 1 and chapter 2. One of the things that Kitasaro has pointed to again and again is just the power of seclusion of the mind that can collect and be still. And they both, Tanisara and Kitasaro, have both pointed us in the direction of awareness of breathing practice, as Ajahn Chah has given them instructions and they've passed that along to us. Just follow your breath, right? Just the power of noticing the breath and the mind that can set other things down, that can set the thinking mind down, perhaps at times, maybe not always, but this practice that is worth digging into. And in the guided meditation, just experimenting with that a little bit, seeing if we can notice the breath and notice also the power of that letting go that happens when the mind can just be here with this energy, this life force energy, this flow of air in and out of the body. And it's almost like a gift to the mind that it doesn't have to spin in its thought, right? It can just have these moments where we can find some peace. And it doesn't feel like that to each of us all the time. And it may not feel like that. That might not be your experience with awareness of breathing practice. But appreciating too that this instruction maybe that we have internalized over the years, if we've been at this a while, of needing to direct the attention to a particular place in the body might be a little more limited than what the Buddha intended. So perhaps I've been practicing with this over the week, just being aware of the breath, doing awareness of breathing practice while I'm engaged in my life. Like while I'm cooking, while I'm cleaning, while I'm working, while I'm watching one of the press conferences on the media, or while I'm walking my dog or taking out the trash. But just kind of having the breath in the background as a reminder that this possibility of letting go or setting it all down, setting all the burdens of the heart down is right there. It can be right there. And just feeling into that uh, strength of heart that is there. Like, oh, this is my life force energy, this breath that's keeping me alive, this body keeping this body alive. It's been a powerful reminder just to have there with me. It's a very interesting time to be a Dharma teacher, um, to be a human being, to be alive, and in my case, to be a Dharma teacher. Yeah, just I have this sincere intention to offer something each time I talk with you all, offer something that's going to be useful, and remembering and realizing more and more week by week that how much I rely on the felt sense of other bodies in the room with me to sort of help this constitution, this mind body experience know, yeah, have a better sense of what might land for you. And in this time, relying on um, this live stream format to still hold in my heart all of you out there practicing is an interesting thing. It's a bit of guesswork. Um, it's a bit of guesswork. So I thought I would like to talk a little bit about embodiment tonight, and really using Tanisara's encouragement to be creative in our exploration. And so I've just been, internalizing that instruction over the week, along with Kitasaro's words around um, awareness of breathing practice and finding seclusion and helping the mind touch what we might call continuity or samadhi in moments, even in the midst of our daily lives, in the midst of our doing activity. And so, kind of working with those two ideas with this inquiry of like, well, what is that like to be creative in my practice and to really follow my nose, to use the teachings as a jumping off place, but to make the path my own. And at this time, it feels like this is what we're working with every day. Even tonight, we're just getting a taste of that with the live stream that failed, and then we got back online together. So we're just making these adaptations and adjustments in our life all the time. And it doesn't matter how many minutes you've been a practitioner on this path. This is what it's like for all of us. Mark and Gabe and I have a meeting every Monday morning, and we were all talking this Monday about the challenges of being a human being at this time. Our default habits are there with us, and our habits of procrastination or avoidance or of reactivity in whatever way that the heart wants to kind of work with the conditions of our lives. All of the ways that we're internalizing our experience in this time of what Tanisara calls Ajahn coronavirus, which I've been saying that in my mind quite often because it feels like a way of honoring this teacher that's here for us. So just saying all of that to point to how our humanness is with us no matter what. And we're all kind of living in this reality and these realities together, even if our circumstances are different, that our way of living is quite changed from how it used to be. Right? And human beings, we need human connection that we're not actually getting. And so that changes the nervous system and how it responds to our life, to our activities, to the other humans that we're in contact with, even if it's over Zoom. I also I was speaking with a friend, and um, we were talking about how the body and the mind get so fatigued with consistent Zoom meetings. I've been noticing this. I said to Stacy early a few weeks ago, like, wow, at like 11 o'clock in the morning, my mind is tired. I don't feel like that. The body doesn't feel like it needs sleep, but the awareness needs to be refreshed by a new activity. So learning how to, have some time with my dog, or go outside, or just move around the house in a different way, just to give the mind some refreshment. And my friend was telling me that, yeah, that there's actually some scientific backing for the mind that gets fatigued. And maybe you all know this more than me. I haven't taken the time to read up on the research about stuff like this, but so I was just taking her word for it. But the brain is actually trying to integrate information that it gets online in a very uh, uh, in a more singular way. So when we're together as human beings, then we rely on a lot of information that's coming in differently. So we rely on body language, for example, and movement and earth and context, right? All around. But now we're just integrating what we get off of a screen. And so it takes the brain that receives information, it's working much harder than it normally has. And perhaps that effort, the mind that is making effort, right, to stay connected, is getting fatigued quite easy, quite maybe more quickly than we'd expect. So just interesting to be exploring our interconnection in new ways as we're learning. And even since I've been doing these live stream events, programs on Wednesday nights, and our stay at home order is now 4 weeks in, about 4 weeks in here in Minnesota. I know not everybody is in Minnesota here tonight, but it's similar probably for many of you wherever you're at, that things are shifting, right? I I was talking to someone today, and they were saying, "I'm so sick of Zoom. I'm so sick of being online with people." Like, yeah, I know that feeling. Things are more difficult. The body and the mind, relating to the conditions, are even changing day by day, moment to moment. So just some uh, a little bit of what has framed my interest and inquiry in the topic of embodiment, and really wanting to talk about embodiment in honor of all the heavy lifting that our bodies are doing these days, right? Talking a little bit about the brain and the body that gets fatigued, not sleepy, but fatigued. So all of our life exists right here in and with the body. And the body is impacted by every moment of our lives, all the internal and the external experiences. And at the center of our practice is a grounding in the body. So the Buddha really grounded our practice right here with the body. And our capacity to actually be in our bodies, using the senses and understanding this connection, this mind body connection that's always present. It's almost hard to know the difference between mind and body sometimes, because they're so connected. And this is kind of what we mean by embodiment, kind of, because it's a little more nuanced than that, just mind body connection. But this mind body connection is really at the heart. Knowing body to know mind is really at the heart of what we're doing as practitioners. And so our capacity to connect with our bodies to know the resonance, the heart's resonance on the body's resonance on the heart, to know how each moment of our lives land right here in the body, helps us grow stronger, helps mindfulness learn how to be intimate in our lives, and helps us learn how to be more responsive, more compassionate, more wise, and more creative uh, citizens, community members, interconnected beings. Otherwise, if we're not embodied, if we don't learn to be embodied, our minds spin in its thinking, and it's not that creative. The intellectual mind alone is not that creative. But the thinking mind, that actually the body that knows what how the thinking mind, how the thinking is landing in the body, now that's a more integrated way of being in the world. So bodily formations is a phrase that Gil Fronsdal uses, is really at the heart of what we mean by embodiment. So sometimes we use the word embodiment and it can be interpreted as knowing body sensations, but that's not completely it. When we say embodiment, what we mean is knowing the response of the body, the connection of the body and mental formations. So, for example, I've noticed that when I am concentrating, when I am listening, I've been watching myself do this, even sometimes when I'm teaching, but I can be a little more attentive because I'm looking at a picture of my face most of the time, or the green dot, one of those two things. But I've noticed as I've been doing Zoom or Google Hangout meetings with individuals that when I'm listening intently, I tend to squint. This is not a new understanding or new realization for me, but it has been an interesting representation of embodiment. Like the mind that concentrates or is zoning in, the body does this, the face uh, does something, right? And it's not like I'm making that happen. This is just the natural mind body connection. Or perhaps another simple example is when the eyes, like we're surprised and the body responds, like with eyes wide open or something like that. Or listening to something when the mind is relaxed, something that's funny or silly, then the body responds by like, moving, or perhaps laughter comes and emits through the vocalizations and the movement of body, something like that. And another way that of recognizing embodiment, this natural way that the mind and body line up or in alignment, through this lens of trauma. And uh, and maybe trauma is a strong word, and that resonates for me, and perhaps it does for you too. But more than just trauma or intense, difficult experiences, we might just say also include unpleasant experiences. So when we've had unpleasant experiences or even traumatic experiences in our lives, the body the body remembers so that it can protect itself in the future. Yeah. And so often, I have found this to be true for myself, and perhaps you found this to be true for you too, that the body will brace when it even gets the faintest scent of of a similar experience. So we might be activated by environmental things or sounds or sights or ideas or um, it can be really anything. It can activate this old response, and the body might brace or um, have uh, another way of expressing its conditioning, because that has really conditioned the body's current response. And it feels important to speak to trauma, uh, really because of this of this current experience with Ajahn coronavirus. Given how we are living these days, for many of us who have had trauma or deeply unpleasant experiences, trauma has been a reality in my life. So I can speak to this, and many of the people that I have spoken to or work with, and other other practitioners have let me know that I'm not alone in this. Uh, Given the conditions that we're living in, that our the body can sometimes respond to the environment as if it is being re-traumatized. So some our trauma habits, we might say, or the body's trauma habits might be showing themselves to us at a more with more regularity these days. And even if they're not habits that are related to trauma, they might be related to just um, old habits, like habits of disconnection or depression or anxiety, right? These might not be related to traumatic experiences for all of us, but they might be activated by the way that we're living in isolation and not in connection, so physical connection with other human bodies as much anymore. And given the isolation, we also don't have access to our usual denial mechanisms. So it feels a little bit like the intensity of the retreat container. If any of you have been on a retreat, even a half day or a day long retreat, you know that the intensity of setting down the duties in our lives to just go inward has a real potency. And so, in some ways, the isolation that we're living in mimics the intensity of that container. And so, just kind of setting these things in context for us so that, perhaps it helps us to feel a little more like, oh, what I'm going through is not unique, is not so much unique to me, but a uniquely human experience all over the world right now. So, what we're being asked to do in this time is to confront often our deepest pains and touch the places that need the most healing. And this is really hard work, right? It is really hard work. And it makes it hard to stay in our bodies. So, we might notice this inclination to want to consume media or to want to check out in some way so that we can avoid being an embodied human being. But the good news is that with practice, we can learn to reclaim our bodies. And this is at the heart of what we do as Buddhist practitioners, to reclaim our bodies, to be in our body, to learn how to connect. And this gives us so much more capacity. It really does. I have noticed this as I have learned to reclaim my body. And it might start in really gentle ways, like finding neutral zones in the body, finding places of comfort in the body, right? And not pushing. We don't want to push or make any demands on the nervous system, but we can learn how to slowly we can slowly with practice learn that being in our body is actually the place where we have the most strength, not the least strength, the most strength. And so I have been moving between this, and maybe you do this quite often too, but moving between this individual understanding of trauma and what's happening with my body and with other bodies that are living among among me and others in the world, and kind of moving into the collective and into a collective understanding to help me and to help us understand really what it means to be interconnected and to feel more deeply into the root of sangha or community, because it is through the power of connection that we can learn to heal, that our minds, our hearts our bodies start to heal from our wounds. So we look to the body, we look to some connection with the body and the body's innate wisdom to teach us how to heal, really. And the body has a lot of wisdom. So even the wisdom of taking what has been historically difficult and placing it in the current context. So those moments when we misinterpret signs in our environment and our bodies react to those as if there's some threat, right? Remembering an old trauma and relating to it now is the body's innate wisdom that we can say, oh, yeah, look at this. The body is this mind body integrated experience, this embodied experience is trying, perhaps in a confused way, to take care of me now. And isn't that nice? It can be a real, I've learned how to notice these things like the bracing, for example, because that's a reality for me, um, and other ways. But for sure, that one like the bracing against something difficult, like as a beautiful act of love that the system is offering me now. And so the movement from the individual to the collective. So our traumas are going to show up in our bodies and in our lives right now, and with some veracity. Um, and our the intensity of our environments tend to amplify what's been in our bodies often for generations. And just like, I don't know if I'm remembering a, a word, it's epigenetics. I don't know if some of you have studied epigenetics, but it's basically, I wrote something down that I thought was beautifully stated, but it is the science of epigenetics has shown that how an individual reacts to significant traumatic events can over time shape patterns of behavior, brain function, and even DNA expression, and subsequently follow down through generations. So, for example, family members, if you had family members that were survivors of the Holocaust or other genocide, perhaps the um, American Indian genocide that has happened right here in the United States, or family members that have served in a war or witnessed or experienced severe trauma or abuse, it's possible that our current heightened anxiety is due to inherited alterations in our own stress response system. This is the genius of epigenetics. So it's basically putting some language to our experience of generational trauma. Yeah. So just like our individual traumas, our collective traumas are becoming more and more visible to us, right? So we can use that same framing of epigenetics, that wise understanding of how trauma perhaps is passed down generation to generation. And we can use the intellect of our mind to understand some of that really carefully. Like I often imagine, in one creative way that I meditate at times is I'll start by imagining myself as an infant, and then I will imagine myself or my mother. I'll imagine my mother carrying me, like with her, in some of the pictures I've seen her with her big belly and baby and belly. And then I'll imagine my grandmother, and my grandmother with her big belly, and my mother and her belly. And just understanding that every moment of our lives really lands here in the body. And that has been, those moments in my grandmother's life have been carried forward in my mother's life. And those moments, just as my mother was carrying me, and those moments where she laughed, or those moments where she cried, or those moments where she was startled, those had an impact on baby and belly, which is me. And then I was birthed, and then I've got all these childhood experiences and growing through my adult life. So just, kind of using the intelligence of the mind, the imaginative mind, to understand how that's possible, that tracing back like that and carrying forward. And so this works for individuals, and it also works for collective traumas, right? So through this time of pandemic, it seems hard not to become more and more aware of the inequities in the United States. So this, um, especially the inequities of race and culture, and how the this pandemic is impacting Black communities at an extraordinary level, and impacting poor communities at an extraordinary level, and is impacting Native communities at an extraordinary level. And understanding that these realities, these current realities, are directly related to the traumas of old, right? That this country has been, no matter how you shake it, we can't deny that this country has been founded on slave labor and stolen land. So, although that was a long time ago, the reality of current oppression exists in those communities, and not just in brown communities, but also for white beings right here, because we have inherited the capacity to shut down and not actually live into those realities, those harms. It is just like it's hard for us to connect with uh, our past difficult experience in this life. You know, you can see the wisdom of the system that wants to say, no, I just want to check out and watch this TV show right now. I don't actually want to be in my body because I feel this and it's hard. This is the same thing that we do collectively, right? When there are realities that feel difficult to digest. And so, one of the expressions of whiteness is this shutting down of the heart, this closing off of the heart, because it feels hard to digest the reality of the harm that has been caused throughout time and over history. So it is really good practice for our minds to continue to go between the personal and the collective, because it's in this back and forth that we actually realize the power of sangha, the body that connects us, our bodies that connect us. We use our bodies as expression of our interconnectedness all the time, from the womb that carries children to the hands that hug and touch and care for others. Our bodies represent how relational we are. We look like our ancestors because we are our ancestors. And so, this collective reality that we have let, that as humans, the seeds of greed and hatred that flow through these hearts, that have kind of run away with our life force energy, our vitality, and really obscure the view of our innate goodness. So these moments where, like Kitty Sorrow, it really is not surprising at all in my experience. I know what it's like to be able to tap into some seclusion. You know, he pointed to again and again the power of awareness of breathing. Just be with the breath and set everything down. In that moment when the heart can really let go, it can actually feel its capacity to be peaceful. And in that moment, the heart gets a taste of its goodness. This peaceful, this relaxed heart can actually feel. It can actually feel the reality of our lives. It can actually feel how it is to be alive moment by moment by moment. It's not in those moments where the mind is spinning off in its incessant thinking that we actually learn what it's like to be alive. That mind, that intellectually proliferating mind, is not very creative, it's very limited. But this embodied, this felt sense of what it's like right here with this breath in this moment is actually a mind that can imagine, that can know what to do next, know the right response, know how to be compassionate, know how to care. So, what do? We learn new and creative ways of relating, right? moment by moment so that we can learn how to care about these expressions of difficult experiences so that we learn that we're not alone when trauma memories or trauma habits are showing up for us, so that we place ourselves in the context of the collective and we understand that, oh, yeah, what we're seeing is an expression of something that the underbelly, at least here in the United States and perhaps around the world in different ways, uh, the underbelly of greed and hatred that has expressed itself again and again, that we're seeing that visibility. So we practice not turning away. We use our mindfulness practice to develop the skill of being intimate with our lives, intimate with our bodies, intimate with our hearts, this interconnected heart body experience. We like get good at that as practitioners. And practice, we actually learn that um, nothing is off limits. I say this quite often, that we don't have to wait for a perfect moment to start practicing. We can use this moment of intense aversion, of no, of disconnection, of rejection to actually practice being courageous. It's beautiful because that's what's here, right? We have this image of a meditation practitioner or a Dharma teacher that is perfectly calm, without reactivity, without trauma response, sitting at home, you know, practicing all day long, perfect concentration. But it's not like that at all. We're just human beings. We've learned in our study of the Four Noble Truths that dukkha is a reality for all of us. So we get to start in the moments of our lives. We get to see if we can develop this courage that helps us meet and be with and reclaim our bodies so that we can use our lives to contribute to something good and beautiful, to contribute to kindness, to contribute to justice, to contribute to noticing and waking up to whiteness so that we're not um, perpetuating ideas of dominance, expressions of dominance and superiority, so that we're not cultivating the only habit that we can rely on, the habit of turning away. We're practicing just saying yes in really simple but liberative ways. I was listening to a talk and reading some material from Ajahn Sucitto, who is a Western monk and a teacher who inspires me with his understanding of embodiment. And he talked about felt meanings. So these experiences and ideas that carry significance. So, and we are in this process of perceiving and categorizing. So, this embodied way of the heart and the body together, making meaning out of all of our experiences, basically. So, um, we name concepts, for example, and there's a plant sitting on my table right here. So I know that I know it's this green thing is a plant, and I also know that I shouldn't eat it, for example, right? It's not food. So these ways of making meaning out of our experiences. I hear sound, and I know that it's the wind, right? And it's not to be afraid of, just for example. And Ajahn was saying that these felt meanings act like bookmarks. So in relationship to trauma, the difficult experiences of our lives really stick out, so that in a way, as a way to help us uh, continue to be protected and safe, they stick out, and anything that sounds like or smells like that old experience will catch our attention, right? It's like a bookmark. And when this bookmark calls our attention, then we notice just that and not the rest, right? We don't notice the other pages in the chapter. We just notice this one potent experience that's calling our attention. And so we can train in noticing, adding new bookmarks. We can train in noticing those moments when there is no agitation in the mind, right? I was taking a walk with my dog today, and I'll probably tell lots of dog stories because this is my only entertainment. I get out once a day, once or twice a day for a walk with my dog, and um, yeah, it's a beautiful time, and I've been learning a lot. And so getting out for a walk with my dog and noticing just how often the mind is making meaning, felt meanings, as Ajahn said. So this embodied meaning, not just cognitive, uh, the cognitive meaning making, but also that resonance on the body. That's the felt meaning. So the concept that has a reality in the body, or the experience, the integrated sensory experience that has a reality in the body. So walking with my dog, and I noticed a bicycler coming, and moved a little bit out of the way, and noticed that the person wasn't going to give me any more room. So we're sharing the same bit of sidewalk. And so how quickly the the nervous system just kind of freaked out, like, oh my gosh, a human is coming at me, may hit me, maybe not, but at the very least, with the reality of coronavirus, Ajahn coronavirus, we would not be able to keep our social distance. So immediately, this, bicycler approaching in the reality of coronavirus and the system that has integrated all of the realities of coronavirus over the last 6 or 8 weeks all came into this one moment of felt meaning where the nervous system kind of freaked out. There was fear, and then a response to that fear, right? And so, just as an example, then I moved actually over towards the road, just on the edge of the sidewalk and the road, and a truck came down the road and was probably afraid that I was going to step in the road and blew its horn. And so then there was this like, okay, out of that moment and into this new moment of startle response. So there was a real, like, significant moment of activation there for me, with these experiences and the way the conceptual mind saw them and the way the body integrated them. And yet there was enough interest and mindfulness, mindful awareness, and care that had been cultivated perhaps over the course of the walk, or days before that, um, years of practice before that, that had laid some foundations for this heart that could actually just care about it all. So, although there was freak out and startle, there was also just this sense of like, oh, sweetie, right? It's like this to be human right now. And of course, and just some tenderness that uh, it could be like this for everybody, all human beings, right? Maybe not this exact scenario, but uh, a similar scenario, a difficult moment that has been fed by previous historical difficult moments and the reality of our current context. And so it was really beautiful, actually. And the mind could then tap into that beauty and see its goodness. Like, oh, it's beautiful to be intimate. It's beautiful to actually be in connection with other human beings in this moment. And it's beautiful to have this heart that wants to take care of itself, even in a confused way, that uses the information of history into this current moment. And all of that activity, that reactivity that was there, that activation dissipated in not that long because of this cultivation of this habit of mindfulness, and the integrated aspects of being in community, understanding our interconnection, and both honoring history and placing practice in a current context. So there's more I had to say, but we're almost running out of time. We are running out of time. We're clearly running out of time. But just to end by saying that the Buddha was a radical experimenter, and the practices, the teachings, and the practices are only ever as good as we can apply them to the context of our current lives, which calls us to be creative and to follow our nose and to do wild, different things. So if you find yourself at home unable to concentrate the way you are used to, or feeling like you need to just do something else, just experiment. I hope that you take it as an invitation, take the Buddhist teachings as an invitation to experiment in your life. You don't have to believe the teachings, you really don't. We're only asked to actually apply them and see if they're fitting. So take a walk. Don't sit if you don't feel like sitting. See if you can take a walk instead. See if you can put your heart, your whole integrated mind body experience into washing the dishes, or see if you can watch what your mind is doing when you're spending a lot of time online, or what it's yearning for, and just see if you can maybe give it a little bit of what it needs. Just asking that question, what do you need for comfort now, sweetie? What is going to help in this moment? Return to some um, return to some felt sense of your own goodness. Hmm. So I'd pause just for a moment and appreciate the collective realities of our lives and all of the experiences that we have as a species, really, to support our awakening. We have so much available to us. We just have to keep practicing, courageously turning towards in the best way that we can, landing right here in our lives, in our embodied lives. May our practice together support each other and all beings in setting useful, kind, generous offerings in motion, and setting down the greed and the hatred that have caused us difficulties. Thanks for being here. And I'm hearing in the chat that it's a lot of Happy Earth Day offerings. So, yes, Happy Earth Day to everybody. The world is our teacher. Yes, Patrice. Um, I'll leave, since I talked right up to the bitter end today, I'll leave the chat on for a few minutes in case you want to say hello to each other. Yeah. And I hope to see you again real soon. Remember that on Tuesday nights are fun Dharma evenings with the IMS teacher training cohort. There's been a lot of laughter, a lot of silliness, and some deep Dharma. So if you feel like heart opening, interactive evening, join us on Tuesday nights. It's a Zoom meeting. So go to the Common Ground calendar and click there, click on the link, and you'll connect with us. Next week, two new teachers will be teaching, Jeannie Corrigal and Devin Hassa. And also tune in this Friday, Stacy McClendon will be leading our metta evening. We have moved to a weekly loving kindness offering. So Stacy's up this Friday. Lots of love, everybody.